Here, in the indigenous woodlands of Mozambique, the impossible is taking place. Cattle are being farmed in aid of wildlife conservation. It's shadow time for Alberto Baloy, the chief cattle owner in this area. His wives lay out a blanket under the trees. Time for a well-earned break after a long morning's work. For local cattle owners in this area, a revolution is underway. They've recently formed a grazing association, which Alberto heads up. They are turning their cattle into carbon and restoration heroes and are seeing that economic growth and meat production need not equate to the destruction of the natural habitat or wildlife. Many of their traditional kraals now lie empty because they've grouped their cattle in large herds that overnight in modern mobile bomas, kraals that can move with the herds. And driving the herds are the eco-rangers. Local cattle handlers and owners who, like Alberto, have been trained in climate-smart, wildlife-friendly farming techniques. They've returned to the age-old tradition of driving large herds of cattle strategically up and down the native rangelands. The eco-rangers map out where the cattle should graze and overnight each week, becoming good stewards of their land once again. Alberto needs to convince all the cattle owners in the village to join the grazing association. Here, they farm on communal land with no fences. The grazing lands can only be restored through communal action and better control over all their livestock. That means no more unattended livestock. Over the past few years, many game species have returned to the indigenous woodlands surrounding the villages, and with them, the predators. Instead of having the cattle roam free, the eco-rangers guard the livestock 24/7. They also steer them away from the buffalo, who can carry foot and mouth disease and tuberculosis. Even so, some cattle owners are hesitant, as this is a strange new way. Alberto insists it's simply rotational grazing, the way their forefathers did it for centuries. He understands their hesitations. Leaving his precious cattle in the eco-rangers' care took a leap of faith. But winter is approaching, and the grazing areas close to the villages are already stripped bare. The eco-rangers drive the cattle deeper into the forest, where the grass is healthier. This allows the areas near the villages to rest and recover. They herd the cattle in larger joint herds, the same way wild herds move over the grasslands. In the late afternoon, the cattle are led into the tent-like boma pitched close to a water point. Unlike traditional kraals with their wooden fences, the solid canvas walls keep the cattle out of sight of predators. After a happy day's grazing, the cattle enter the boma relaxed and ready to ruminate. Come nightfall, the eco-rangers settle in close to the boma to keep watch. Cattle noises can lure opportunistic predators, but with human presence, the cattle are safe. The eco-rangers also keep a close eye on the health of the animals, branding them and recording their numbers and movements. They're trained to attend to any wounds and injuries and to assist the veterinary teams with preventative health care, such as spraying for ectoparasites and vaccinating against disease. Science and best practice guide the eco-rangers as to when and where to move the bomas to a new spot. This kraal rotation can do wonders for degraded rangelands. The herd's hooves trample organic matter into the soil, while their waste fertilizes the ground. Once they've moved on, grass seeds in the manure begin to germinate in the well-composted earth. Due to the additional feeding and mineral licks provided by the eco-rangers, the cattle owners report they've gone through their first winter without losing any animals. They're also thankful that only one animal has been lost to predation in almost 2 years. Losses in non-participating villages can exceed 20 animals a month. Alberto, too, can see how the condition of his animals is improving. Thanks to quality grazing, stress-free herding, and the shorter distances they need to walk every day, the cows have become much more productive. One of the important conditions to joining the new grazing plan, however, is that bushmeat hunting is strictly prohibited. The eco-rangers who crisscross the park are bound to report any traps or signs of poaching to the game wardens. In turn, the game wardens who monitor the movement of lions in the park are happy to inform the eco-rangers when cattle and lions might cross paths. For cattle farmers like Alberto, the value of well-managed livestock becomes clear. With the eco-rangers' help, he sells his livestock and makes a profit on the formal market for the first time. Alberto can now buy the truck he always wanted and transport much-needed water to the village and to the newborn calves that stay within the safety of the boma. In villages in and outside the park, the movement is growing. More eco-rangers are being trained and grazing committees formed. And they've also begun herding the cattle in joint herds across their communal rangelands. All the while, Alberto and his grazing committee have begun the next phase. Before the growing season commenced, they used their cattle to fertilize their fields. Now their crop yields are up to 3 times better than before. In some of the most degraded rangeland areas, they sow native grass seeds after the first rains to aid the restoration process. In Limpopo National Park, an unlikely miracle is taking place. Alberto and his fellows have discovered that when you first attend to the soil and to the grass, you create a self-regenerative system that can support both wild and domesticated animals with livelihood opportunities from both. In the woodlands, shadow time in the many brown circles is ending. Tiny green shoots display how nature is planting herself back.